What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Puzzle Speedrun, where we are trying to get from 1500 to 2500. We are currently at 2208, and I decided that from this episode on, I will look at each puzzle beforehand before I show it to you. So I will try to figure out the solution in my head, and you will not see that process, but I will then explain how I found the solution and what the solution actually is. I decided to do this so that the videos don't get so long, and I don't want you to sit there watching me figuring out the solution of the puzzle, which might be boring. So let me know in the comments what you think about this decision, and let's jump straight into puzzle number 1 of this episode. Here we have a end game where there are 2 rooks and a queen on the board each, and yeah, we have a kind of very much pressure going down this diagonal here, and also the queen placed on the g4 square seems to be very vulnerable to attack. So I thought of simply attacking the queen firstly, and notice that if the queen moves back to one of these 2 squares, well, the queen will be basically forkable. So let's say we move here, the queen moves here, and then we will capture the pawn, sacrifice a rook, and fork. So if they recapture, of course, we will bring in the other rook, and well, they will lose their queen. So we will be basically winning a queen and 2 pawns for 2 rooks, which should be completely winning. But of course, after we move a rook to f4, we will not need. Well, white will not need to move the queen back, at least not right away. So let's see what the queen can do. Well, the queen can move to g5. In that case, we can, I think, bring on the other rook, bring it to the f5 square, once again attack the queen, and the queen will be forced to move back to g3. So, and after that, we again enter the sequence of moves where we capture with our rook on f3. So this would be a good outcome for us. And the other move that white can do in this position is queen to h5. And I think in this position we can now play g6. Attacking the queen once again, it will have to move. And well, let's say it moves to g5. Then once again we can bring the other rook, lift the rook to f5, and we will be once again be attacking the queen, and it will have to move to one of these 2 squares. And there is one more variation we could enter, and that variation would be, well, we go to f4 attacking the queen moves to h5, and we attack it with our pawn, and now the queen moves down to h6. Of course, now the queen will not be here where it can be forked, but at the same time, the queen will also not be protecting this pawn here anymore. So I think after this sequence of moves, we will be able to sack our rook here on f3 anyway. After white will recapture, we will then bring on the queen to the square. And well, at the very least, we have a very huge attack with very weak white king, and also be winning back this rook at least. Yeah, because let's say we jump in with our queen to f3, and now the king moves over. We can deliver a check here and then win this rook in the corner, or probably even win this rook by yeah, various threats in the position. So yeah, let's try to go for this idea. And yeah, white immediately plays queen back to g3. So, well, we basically will have to now go for the sacrifice immediately, which we of course are very happy to do, because yeah, white simply loses material in this puzzle. So that was puzzle number 1. Let's get on to the next one immediately. So here we are in an endgame where it is a bishop and, well, 3 pawns versus a rook and 3 pawns. And we have a very far advanced passed pawn on e4, so only 3 more moves to promotion. So I thought we might push this pawn here, and well, white will have to quickly react to this threat of us getting so close to the promotion square, so they will probably have to play rook to e6. Also, this check here is not possible since our bishop is covering the square. So after we play e3, they will play rook to e6, and now we will be able to once again push the pawn. Also, with the idea of later blocking this pawn away by putting our bishop onto the e3 square. So again, we play here, they play here. We once again push, and I don't think there is a good move for white in this position. Of course, they can sack their rook for a pawn, but we will still be winning with the extra bishop. If they don't, do anything about it, well, they will have to probably start pushing their advanced pawn themselves. And after that, we can now go for this idea of blocking with the bishop. We block with the bishop on e3, and of course they can sacrifice, but we will take them. And well, of course they can push, but we are the ones which who will be promoting first. They will be promoting after that, but I think in this situation, our queen will be so active, we will be at least winning this pawn here, and we will find a way to force a queen trade, and then, well, be in a winning pawn end game, because we will have 2 pawns, whereas white will only have 1, plus we have a very active king. So I think this line leads to a completely winning position for black, but of course there are other defensive mechanisms that white can employ. So let's say again we play e3, and again white plays rook to e6. We once again push, white once again pushes, and now we go for this blocking idea. But now, of course, white does not necessarily have to sacrifice the rook, but white can play rook over to f6, now giving us a check. I think in that case we will be able to tuck our queen away on e4. They can move back, giving us another check. But then we will go back not to our f3, but to our f4 square. And if they then once again go back, giving this check, we will be able to play king to e5, attacking the rook. And also there are no more checks in this position. That is, if white has already pushed his pawn, because this square here will not be protected. So yeah, I think there is no way of white for defending against this sequence of moves. So let's simply start by pushing the pawn. And yeah, white plays rook to e6, attacking the pawn, but we are of course protecting it, and we keep pushing it. Now white starts basically pushing their own pawn, and now we really very much, that's the key of this puzzle, is finding, I think, this bishop to e3 idea, blocking off. And yeah, this is where the puzzle actually ends. So I did much more calculation than was actually needed, but of course it can make sense to calculate more moves than are actually gonna be useful or be used in the puzzle, because they're still useful, since of course moves are only good if the future of these moves also turns out to be good. So this was puzzle number 2. We got 15 points. We are now at 20-40, and we're gonna jump on right to puzzle number 3 of this episode. So once again here we are in an endgame, and we have 2 rooks versus 2 rooks, and there is a very complicated pawn situation going on, but maybe it's not as complicated as it looks. So the most important thing is that we have this pass pawn on c5. If we again can push it towards promotion, we will be in a very good situation. So let's simply consider pushing the pawn, and let's see how black can try to respond to our threat of promotion, soon promotion. So of course we will have a hanging pawn here. If black were to capture the pawn like this, they would lose their rook, so that's not an option. If they capture the pawn with the rook, well, we can, I think, simply ignore that our own rook is attacked and keep pushing our pawn to the c7 square. Because from there on, of course, they can win our rook, but we will then get a queen, and we'll have a queen versus two rooks. A queen and a rook versus two rooks. So this will be winning. So, yeah, if they decide to capture it like this, we will be winning. If they, after we push c6, decide to capture like this, well, I think we can now take on here, because well, if we do not take, they will probably have some defense. But if we were to yeah, if they play like this, we can capture. They, of course, again cannot recapture with the pawn because the rook would fall. So yeah, they will have to recapture with their rook, and then we will push our pawn to c6, and then there will be nothing that black can do to stop us from promoting. Of course, we promote, they take us, but we recapture, and we will be up a rook, and we will win this pawn, and we will win the game. So, and I think, yeah, there's no really good other move. Like, everything else is just too slow for black. I mean, bringing the rook out this way doesn't work either. It's too slow. We are already there when they get behind our pawn. So let's try to go for this c6 idea. And yeah, now they capture us. And I think, yeah, if we were to capture here in this variation, well, they could recapture with the rook actually, and then they would have a very strong advanced pawn themselves. And I think they would be also able to promote a queen, so this would be probably a draw. So we don't really want to go for that. So let's simply keep pushing our pawn. It's our strongest asset. And yeah, I think now we can capture this rook here on b3, because, well, if we do not capture, if we promote now, they will grab us, and then they will grab the other rook. So we will not be up, we might actually be worse there, because we have less pawns, so we will be worse definitely. So let's go now for a trade, and yeah, if they are, of course, recapturing us, we will promote. And, well, if they don't recapture us, and if they decide to take our pawn, yeah, it's gonna be an easy win with two rooks versus one. So once again, a nice puzzle in an endgame. Let's jump on to the next one. So here you have the last puzzle of this video. I'm gonna, yeah, make the videos a little bit shorter. At least I'm trying to. I don't want half an hour videos all the time. So, and let's look at this puzzle. And here in this situation, well, our knight's getting attacked, and we will, well, probably need to move it out of the way. And also I noticed that this bishop here is undefended, and it's also x-rayed by our queen. So basically what that means is that this pawn here is pinned. So it allows our knight to jump to e4, actually delivering a fork. And, well, of course, let's consider what black can do in response. They can capture, of course, giving up their bishop for the knight, but then we will recapture here. And yeah, after the king moves somewhere, we will be simply able to pick up the rook on c8. So that's not an option for black. Another response move that black has, I think, is bishop to b5. Well, counter-attacking our queen. But of course, we will simply capture their queen. And after they capture ours with a check, we will recapture, well, we will recapture here. And yeah, we will be simply a piece up. Of course, they can then play something like rook to c2, which looks very threatening. But our rook, remember, will be on d3, and I think from there we can even play something like, yeah, rook to b3, protecting here. And there's, I think, nothing for black there. So let's try to go for this knight e4 idea. And yeah, well, actually they sacrificed the rook. Well, and yeah, we're gonna have to capture the rook. And now they bring on the queen. So this was actually a sequence of moves which I did not consider at all. But yeah, now we simply have to come up with a response. And notice that still this this knight basically is still not really attacked, because, well, if even black were to capture here with the queen, we can capture back with our queen, and after takes we will take the rook. So yeah, now we can decide, of course, where we can go. And I think, well, I think actually I have to think that through for a moment, because if we go here, well, I think now actually the move bishop to b5 becomes really annoying, because yeah, this time in the end of the sequence there will be no hanging bishop, and of course this time we don't have the knight to grab the queen here. So we might consider another move, and of course checks you cannot only run away from, you can also take either the piece which is giving a check, but that's not possible. But you can also block the check. The only reasonable block we have here is queen to d4. Well, if they take us, which they pretty much have to, since, well, their queen is pinned to the king and it's unprotected and attacked, well, they will have to take us, and then we can recapture. We recapture with our own rook, and again, if they take us, then we will be able to win the rook again this time. So yeah, this seems much more reasonable. Again, also if we go here, that doesn't look like a very good strategy. Again, also because of this bishop to b5 move, which is really a very annoying move. But I think with queen to d4 we can get out of these troubles. And yeah, now I think it's important to, yeah, it's of course important to capture with the rook, because if we capture with the pawn here, well, our knight will actually be hanging this time. So let's capture with the rook. And we got it right here. So that was the last puzzle for this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and give me please some feedback in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to this channel and give me a thumbs up if you liked it. And as always, thanks for watching.